The New England Patriots are next. And I guess the Jets must feel good about picking a spot ahead of the Patriots. Maybe they could do something there. But
Yeah.
the Patriots, good cap space. So they're in good situation there. I think it's pretty obvious for the Patriots. I mean, they need, without question, they need a bona fide receiver. They've got to get
Yes.
a number one. So that's just, but they have had so many issues over the course of Bill Belichick's career there in using first round picks on receivers. They've all been
Mhm.
disasters. So I don't know what they're going to do there. Maybe they use it on a second rounder and use something else on the first round. But on defense, as usual, they're a good defense. But you know what I think is missing from their defense, besides the pass rushers, Judon and Uche, is they don't have like a really good impact defensive tackle. They don't
Mhm.
have any impact linebackers, and they don't have any impact DBs outside of like Duggar. Duggar's the only guy in that back seven that's an impact player. But other than that, they don't like have a shutdown corner. So what they need is to really just find some premium talent on defense to up their, because again, you know what, Belichick, they're always going to be solid defensively. But like I said,
Mhm.
besides Judon and Uche, I don't really think that there's many guys on defense that opposing offensive coordinators stay up at night worrying about.
Yeah, the peak of Bill Belichick's defenses, they usually had three things, and it didn't even include the edge rushers, which they have now with Judon, and
Uche.
but yeah, and Uche. They always had stout inside linebackers, and the Dante Hightowers,
Yep.
and they don't have anything close to that right now. They've always had a good corner. The peak of the Pats defense, they always had that one corner, like you just said, and then they
Gilmore,
had a big
Revis,
right. Yep.
McCourty.
Yep. And then they always had a big D tackle that could not necessarily always make the big splash plays, but the guy that did all the dirty work that made a lot of pieces around
Yeah.
that focal point work better. I mean, the Vince Wolf arc, right? Like he did a lot for that defense that I thought a lot of people never really gave him credit for. And they have nothing even close. I mean, Barmore has flashed in his 2 years, but I don't think he's ever going to be that kind of player. And so I agree with you that even though that offense is a complete mess, whatever experiment that was, what they did last year with their play calling and Joe
Well,
Judge
they
and
got
Matt
O'Brien in
Patricia,
now, so
yeah, now
yeah.
O'Brien, like that was one of the more bizarre things. I kept on saying, "This is no way this is true." Like there's something
I know,
under,
right?
there's something coming that we just don't see, and that ended up being the case. And I really feel like that's why they were on the outside looking in this year. Shopping at the dollar store for wide receivers. I think they really have to go. And I know they drafted Tyquan Thornton in round 2 last year, but Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, even Jacoby Myers. I mean, a solid slot, but they have not had an outside receiver go over 1,000 yards, and that's even when Brady was still there since 2017. That was Brandon Cooks. So if you remember back to when
Oh
Brandon
yeah.
Cooks was on the Pats, that's the last time an outside receiver went over 1,000 yards. They had Julian Edelman, so they had, he was a monster in the slot, but having that outside threat is a big deal. Maybe that they think they're going to have that in Tyquan Thornton, but I wouldn't put my eggs in that
No.
basket. I thought that pick was one of the bigger reaches on day 2
Yes.
last year. Just very one-dimensional player. So I think wide receiver. I also think a sneaky need on that offensive line is tackle. Isaiah Wynn did not work out. I think he's going to be playing
Absolutely.
elsewhere very
Yes.
soon.
Well, no,
And even
yeah,
Trent,
they're both free agents, right? Win and
yeah,
Cannon.
yeah, and Trent Brown is coming back, but I was not impressed by him. I thought his best football was 3 years ago, the first time he was on New England. Went to Raiders, was bad, got him back in a trade from them, and I still think that his best days are way behind him. And again, sometimes those really big tackles, like he is bigger than big, their shelf life is more often than not a little shorter than you think. So they could potentially be going into this offseason with an already weak offensive passing game overall, with two tackle spots that need to be filled. And that's something that's going to have to be thought about with this first pick.
Well, the other thing is they lose Damian Harris. Now Stevenson has
Mm-hmm.
become their number one guy anyway. And,
Yeah.
and and they might look at Strong and Harris as like the second and third running backs now behind Stevenson. But they could probably use like the next James White. They could
Yeah.
really use that guy in that offense.
Pass catcher.
A more speedy receiving running back to complement Syvertsen.
Yeah, they tried that with J.J. Taylor from Arizona, who went undrafted. He got a couple preseason looks, but then he had some fumble issues, and that didn't work out. So I agree. My question, and maybe you have some insight on this too, because you've watched this team so much, being in that division as the Jets. But was that more of a Patriots thing or more of a Tom Brady thing? The James White, Dion Lewis contributions to that offense. What do you think?
I think it was a Patriot thing because that went before White too. Who was it that they had there before White?
Dion Lewis.
Yes, Dion Lewis was there. Right. He was in that role. Yeah. So they always had that guy.
Scat back type.
That they developed after. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I have to go back a ways, but it was a part of their. Now again. At least O'Brien is back, and now it's back to being the Patriot way that you would think.
A real offense.
Yeah. So,
another thing that I think about with the offensive line, too, and this kind of goes back to O'Brien and even the running back talk a little bit. I always thought that the offensive line, when Brady was there, was a little publicly overrated because Brady was, I think, one of his best traits, even though he's not a plus athlete, is evading the pass rush within the pocket. And a lot of quarterbacks, they don't get to that next level of playing quarterback because they can't do it. Brady was not the best athlete, but he excelled at knowing where to go in the pocket and also when to get the ball out.
Oh, he was awesome at
some
that.
quarterbacks, they just did not know that he felt. I mean, how many times did you watch Brady get rid of the ball right before the defender got to him?
And it would be these in the dirt throws that who cares? Next up, next down.
Yeah.
I'm not getting sacked.
I just feel like with a normal quarterback, you would have looked back at this offense and said, hey, that offensive line is not good. And I think this offensive line has been not good for a long time. And it's just being exposed more and more now because of the fact that Brady's no longer there.
Yeah, they have right now. I mean, Andrews is always serviceable, but Onwenu was a huge pickup. Because he's been probably their best lineman since.
Oh, I mean, I made an all-pro team for our lads, and he was second team all-pro. I thought he was one of the best guards in football. We had him at the Shrine game, Shanka and I, a few years ago, and we both said, we walked out of those practices that week and said, that kid's going to be a stud. They moved him around his first year, tackle guard, and guard is his best spot.
It's amazing he lasted to the 6th round.
Amazing, yeah. And it was just some athleticism issues, but he plays so big and so powerful. I mean, I think the interior is solid with Cole Strange, Andrews, and Onwenu, but it doesn't matter. If you can't pass protect on the outside, it won't matter.
Yeah, offensive tackle definitely going to be a big part. Wide receiver, as we said, and we'll see what they do as far as adding some star power on defense, maybe getting back to the old days of what really made the Patriots defense scary.